Back is Dorsey to throw. Yeah! He throws it in the end zone.
Off to the races. Can they catch it? Cuts it back. Ohio State
The Ohio State of Mind podcast, hosted by Josh Keatley and Michael Chen.
Hi, welcome into episode number 50 of the Ohio State of Mind podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Chen. On my right side, stage right, is Joshua Keatley, and below us is Coach Ryan Stewart. Episode 50, gentlemen, as we talked about pre-show, not a lot of glorious former Buckeyes wearing that number, and we all settled in on one specific player, a recent one, that would be Vernon Gholston. As we talked about in the pregame show, unfortunately, Gholston did not have the best NFL career. You could probably, or you should be labeling him as a bust. But when he was with the Buckeyes, he was a terror on the defensive line. Gentlemen, thoughts on Vernon Gholston?
I think that if you play college football and you make it to the NFL, then you're like in the top 1% of people that play college football. So Vernon Gholston should get our respect.
No, I'm just saying, like, bust in general, considering where he was drafted and the expectations and all that. But awesome that he made the NFL. And,
yeah, man, Vernon Gholston was an absolute freak. I think there was a Michigan game. He had like 3 sacks. Just an 6 overall to Rex Ryan and the Jets. He was a bust. I know he went to the NFL. We didn't, so I get that
Right.
That is a great accomplishment. But I don't necessarily. When you look back at his career, a lot of that I don't necessarily think was his fault. He was moved from defensive end to linebacker. Was a bit of a tweener. They didn't really know how to use him. I think in today's NFL, like let's say he got drafted. If he would get drafted by a team like the Ravens, things probably would have looked different for Vernon.
But I could say that.
That's how it works in the NFL, right? There's a couple other notable 50s in the past. Gordon Appleby was wore number 50. He was the center for Ohio State in the 40s. He's a notable because he was the MVP of the team in 1943. Not a lot of centers in Ohio State history that were team MVPs, so that's somewhat noticeable. Eric Gholston was also number 50. No relation to Vernon Gholston, but the reason I bring him up is because a lot of people might remember him as the tackle for Kurt Warner during the Iowa Barnstormers heyday in the Arena Football League. So a little fun fact there. And then obviously Mike Brewster, who was the 5-star center. Mike, you probably remember that name being the recruiting expert.
The Brew Crew. I do. Oh yeah, I remember
Florida.
the Brew Crew.
Had a great college career. I think he was a 2-time. I think he was an All-American at least one year.
Right.
He was in the NFL for a very short period of time. I don't think he quite had the size to make it. Fun fact, he's now coaching at Valparaiso University.
Oh.
So
wow.
There you go, a little connection there. Yeah.
Hey yo. And
does he have like Dayton ties or something? Is that where does he come from? Dayton?
No,
he's from
Florida.
From Florida.
I'm just saying, I mean, because that whole Dayton staff, when the head coach for Valpo right now is a Dayton guy. He was a defensive coordinator when you played at Valpo. The guy that's the head coach of Valpo now was the defensive coordinator of Dayton.
He might have some. He might have coached at Dayton. I'm not super familiar.
Landon Fox, isn't that his name? That's the Dayton or the Valpo head coach right now.
Yeah, and before we move on, I did want to mention Doug Dadish. He was a pretty damn good offensive lineman for the Buckeyes. So I did want to give him a shout out as well. He was actually second on my list to pick. And then the Bourne brothers, Jacoby played with number 50 as well. He was a center for a little while for the Buckeyes. So, there's a couple of guys, although it was definitely slim pickings with number 50. But yes, there were a few guys. But let's get into what transpired this past weekend with the Buckeyes. Coming off of a bye week, sluggish all game long, needed fourth quarter touchdown and a defensive stop in order to seal the deal against Nebraska, a 21-17 win for the Buckeyes. And Coach, let's start off with you. I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts were after this game, because you and I kind of both saw this coming when we made our picks last week. We both took Nebraska. We did believe that Ohio State would win, but we thought it'd be a lot closer than that spread, which it turned out to be. So, Coach, what were your thoughts on the game?
I just think that Ohio State is just, I think that behind the scenes, I honestly believe that they're just like in turmoil. Like I just do not think that they're just not playing the best people on defense. I think that their offensive line is atrocious. You shouldn't have they have two of the best running backs in college football, and they had 10 attempts for 30 yards and 10 attempts for 40 yards. I felt like they were trying really hard to like lose that game. I know I keep going back and forth on. I mean, they did. Nebraska kind of did what we talked about. They played a lot better than they played against IU.
Indiana.
They were kind of ready to go. Ohio State was slow, but I just refuse to believe Ohio State is not playing their best defensive scheme that they could possibly be playing. They're not playing their best players. And I think that they're probably in a little bit of turmoil. Like, I just don't believe that. I think that there are a bunch of individuals right now. I don't think that there's much of a team. I know that defensively at the beginning of the year, if you were like an Ohio State linebacker or somebody in the secondary, especially if you were a linebacker, you heard all this talk about, hey, we're going to have a rotation. There's going to be lots of movement, and they're just not sticking to it. They haven't ever done it. And I just don't think when you don't have everybody buying into your system, you don't have everybody buying into your coaches, it shows up on the field. And this is definitely how I feel this game was. This game is a reflection of what that team really is. A bunch of individuals, people playing not based on merit, based on money, based on outside influences. Like I know that we talked about it all the time. We wondered, just kind of like a tip, because I've done a lot of research into this and I've asked around a lot. And something that's really interesting that you guys will think is interesting anyway is that we've always wondered, like, how did Arvell Reese jump over Gabe Powers? Like, what's the motivation for that? And the motivation for that is that Ohio State's recruiting two guys from Glendale, the school that Arvell Reese went to. And Ted Ginn Jr. told Ohio State directly that, like, hey, I'm not going to endorse these guys to go to your school until I see what you do with Arvell Reese. And so that's like an ulterior motive to, like, where you got a guy that's just, you're not playing the best guy. It's not, nothing's based off merit at Ohio State right now. And so I think that that's the problem. I think that these games are a reflection of the attitude of that team and the loyalty of that team.
I can definitely see that. I mean, so when I was scrolling Twitter today, I happened to come across some valuable information for us today. And that was the snap count, specifically along the defensive line. The problem is that there is no rotation. There was 70 snaps defensively. Jack Sawyer played 68. Keatley Tuamoloau played 58. Kenyatta Jackson 15. Caden Curry 9. Mitchell Melton 5.
And see,
this is not
super weird, because on a defensive line, rotation is the key to the whole thing. Like you should have 7, 8 guys, 9 guys rotating. Like Caden Curry should be in like every other series, and you can play him across the board. He can play tackle, he can play defensive end. And so then, like, what's keeping you from losing that guy next year? What's keeping Ohio State from losing Gabe Powers and anybody that's not Sonny Styles or CJ Hicks or Arvell Reese next year? Like, it's just you're exactly right. Like, that's ridiculous. Josh, when we were at Valparaiso University, we had at least a 9-man rotation on defensive line.
It boggles my mind. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially with the considerable talent that Ohio State has along the lines. For them to continue to go and ask those guys to play so many snaps, and then on top of it, when you look at what's ahead, you got Penn State the next week, and you kind of want to try and keep them as fresh as possible for that game. And they ended up playing a ton of snaps. Offensively, I think it was 47 total snaps. They didn't control the ball enough. Lost time of possession. I mean,
That's absurd, man.
It was just a very below par performance for the Buckeyes. I mean, luckily they stepped up at the end in the fourth quarter and got that W. But it boggles my mind. Josh, what are your thoughts about this whole, this defensive rotation? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous.
Sure. So let me go over this game step by step, because I do have a couple of notes. Then we'll get to the defensive line thing, because I'm actually surprised that's the route you went with, Mike. Because as I was watching the game and I was reflecting on the game, and I went back and watched it again today too. I kind of thought, wow, this is the Mike redemption tour game, because a lot of the things you previewed last week and a lot of things you're talking about preseason, like, I know I harassed you about Ryan Day after the Oregon loss, but you kind of got me over to your side, squeezing more over there and the Justin Fry thing. So I'm kind of surprised you initially went to the defensive line when the offensive line was so porous. But I'll get there. The first thing I want to know,
the offensive line as well. But there's clearly there's obvious issues as to what was going on with the offensive line.
I think that.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
But here's the part that I'll get to that. So after they lost, they had some struggles earlier in the season, I said, don't panic. They lost to Oregon. Even then, I was upset. I expressed my frustrations, but I said, don't panic. The reason to panic in that situation, because Ryan Day is not changing. But I said last week that, hey, this team can still turn it around and do something, right? There's still time for Ryan Day to turn it around and win a national championship. Now I think it is time to panic, because this team did not look good, dude. Sure. I mean, we could talk about, Nebraska played better this week than they did against Indiana. I don't know if that's true, dude. Like, I think that Indiana just was ready to rock and roll. Like, I mean, this Nebraska team is a good team, but they're not. It was not.
Middle of the pack, Big Ten.
Dylan Raiola was bad. Dylan Raiola was flat out bad. If they had any other quarterback, they would have lost. Dylan Raiola was flat out bad, and I'm not gonna. I know he's a true freshman, and he's 3 years from now he's gonna be in the Heisman conversation. So I'm aware of his giant, high, huge ceiling, but he was flat out bad. He was missing open receivers constantly. Okay, if it was Dylan Gabriel back there, we would have had issues. Ohio State would have lost that game. But let's go through a quarterback. Will Howard. I think Will Howard played well. He threw one ugly interception, but that's going to happen. He also completed like 12 passes in a row, and he threw some really pretty, specifically to Carnell Tate, that I think that we all made us raise our eyebrows. Like, okay, this guy can do it. No complaints about Will Howard. The run game was pathetic. They averaged like 2-3 yards a carry. That's unacceptable.
2.1.
Most of that's on the offensive line. But I will say that, I mean, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson do need to do a better job of admitting defeat and just getting the 2 yards rather than running horizontal. And again, that's more on the offensive line than them. But there were a couple of situations where it was like, dude, just get your goddamn 3 yards. Why are we getting no yards here? Get 3 yards. End it.
Let me ask you this, Josh, because something that drove me nuts about that game is, if you're having offensive line problems, why are you running A-gap boundary side? Like, zone block it and run stretch and let Henderson take his speed and try to beat you to the edge. Like, I saw a lot of boundary A-gap, boundary B-gap runs, and that's absurd. Like, if you don't have the offensive line to do it, those are the dumbest runs to do.
Well,
that's get him in space.
That's what I was going to get to next, is that this was the worst called game I've ever seen by Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Someone said, why are we abandoning the run game? Why are we abandoning the run game? And I don't have an answer for that, right? Because we shouldn't have abandoned the run game. We need to abandon the inside run game. We were getting, I don't know why we were so dead set on running on the inside. That wasn't working. That was the only thing. It was really strange. And then the offensive line, I defend Justin Fry a lot on this show. And I said, this is going to be a big game for the offensive line, because we're really going to see what coaching did, how this offensive line developed, because Josh Simmons is out. We have Zen Mikulski look good against Oregon. This is a good Nebraska defensive line. This is a good Nebraska defense. We're going to see if they got 2 weeks to prepare and get this new offensive line in shape. What's going to happen? Zen Mikulski looked awful. He looked awful, and he's out now. He got destroyed, and he's out now. And what was their game plan? They moved Donovan Jackson to left tackle, which is great. I'm all for that. Sure. That makes a ton of sense. That's awesome. Sure. Here's the issue. They put Luke Montgomery at left guard. I'm sorry? You had 2 weeks to prepare. You had Austin Severold, who was so good when he was playing for in place of Tegra Shabola early in the season, that there was a competition. Tegra Shabola and Austin Severold. And now you go with Luke Montgomery. I'm not mad that they played Luke Montgomery. I'm stressed out because that to me is a sign of bad coaching. You don't have a fucking plan.
No, but
Well,
Josh,
that guy hasn't taken a snap all year. Luke Montgomery hasn't taken a snap all year long. You had two guys competing for that other guard spot, and you go with Luke Montgomery other than several in Integra. That makes no sense. That makes no sense to me. That scares me that you had 2 weeks to prepare and you threw out a guy that we've seen on the field in such a limited time. That's so alarming to me. It's like, what was the plan there?
Well, this is the constant problem with these guys at Ohio State right now. And it's kind of like the problem that I noticed, like once they made Kerry Combs like the defensive coordinator, this is part of the problem. And I think Ryan Day is like a big victim of it right now. And I can tell you it's easy to do, but like these guys, when you get to Ohio State, you really start to believe that these guys have egos and they don't adjust. That's the difference between IU playing Nebraska and Ohio State playing Nebraska in the last 2 weeks is that IU is super dynamic. They really mix it up and they will adjust in a drastic manner. And Ohio State is just not willing to do that. They have big egos. All of these coaches have big egos, and they're not willing to adjust. And they just don't believe that they have to. I almost think it's like laziness. Like they don't think that they have to have a plan. They literally think, oh, we should be able to throw in whoever, whenever, and like this whole next man up without. I don't think that it's Justin Fry. A lack of coaching. I think that it's literally like he's not calling the shots. He coaches everybody the same, and it's not up to him. And so the other thing I really want to touch with you guys on is once you get into a season with Ohio State, their practices are not physical. You're not going to get anything. You're not going to necessarily improve a lot from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. It's not like high school football. They very rarely, it drives me nuts. Like when they're talking about, like this guy had a good week of practice. A good week of practice with what? Like you're doing thud. You have an inside zone period. You have 7-on-7 period. And the most you're going is thud.
But that makes sense. But I understand what you're saying. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but they were forced to make an adjustment. The adjustment that they made no sense. Right. And maybe it's not all Justin Fry's fault.
Because they're not used to making adjustments. They're not used to adjusting to nothing. And so, they're going to make bad ones.
I understand that a lot of that's Ryan Day. Right. And I'll be the first to throw Ryan Day under the bus. But Justin Fry does the chunk of the blame. The offensive line looked like shit. And everybody they threw in there looked like shit. And they haven't gotten that much credit. This was his time to shine. When Josh Simmons went down, this was his time to shine. Was to show me like, okay, one of these 4-star recruits is developed and we can play them
and ready to roll.
How do you Montgomery out there made no sense. You played. Why didn't you? I don't understand why you didn't put. If he would have put Donovan Jackson at left tackle, several left guard, kept Integra at right guard, I would have been happy. That makes sense to me. Sure. Threw Luke Montgomery out there. I said last week on the show, because Mike called it out. Mike said, well, we might see Luke Montgomery at left. I think you said off the tackle, but whatever. We might see Luke Montgomery on Saturday. And I cut you off and I said, dude, if we see Luke Montgomery, that's a fucking issue. And then we saw Luke Montgomery. That's an issue to me. There's no way this dude who has played 0 snaps all year long is going to be ready for Penn State. It makes no sense.
What's the motive? What's the motive?
I don't know.
Because
I think
Ohio State's not rational with who they have playing. So do they pay that guy money? Is he going to transfer?
I don't think that they know what they're doing. I don't know. They're grasping at straws, but we're going to find out. We're going to find out this week. I mean,
real quick.
Moving on, the receivers. I thought the receivers again played well, right? Carnell Tate. I think we can label this as the Carnell Tate game. This was a breakout game from him. He was open all the time, constantly. Looked great. I think
on his father's birthday, by the way.
Looked great. He looked great.
First 100-yard game of his career on his father's birthday.
Yeah, but how did they
go on?
No, because how did they get away with they did a lot of cover one. So they did a lot of man underneath, one safety over top. So they had a lot of opportunities to like where Mbuka was man one-on-one and Jeremiah Smith was man one-on-one. I don't understand how there wasn't more like big passes down the field because Nebraska played like a very aggressive defense against Ohio State receivers. I saw a ton of cover one. I saw a lot of no safety help over top.
I don't know. I don't have the passing game. I don't really have an issue with. Could there have been more plays? Did Will Howard hit everybody he should hit? No, but I feel like did he go conservative? There were guys open downfield, and sometimes he would dump it off. I don't know what he was seeing. I'm not going to bitch about it too much though, because I don't think any quarterback is perfect. I think that's a big issue that we have as Ohio State fans is that we're so used to seeing guys like C.J. Stroud hit every single pass. Guys like Justin Fields, where if he doesn't hit the pass, he does something sick. You know what I mean? Like I'll forever defend Colin McCord. I think that was part of the issue is that he wasn't as good as C.J. Stroud, but he could run the offense. Will Howard, I mean, I get people. Someone was bitching about Will Howard on Saturday at the game, and I'm thinking because he threw that pick, his interception. I'm thinking that's what quarterbacks do. Good quarterbacks still throw interceptions. Like this is if you can't win with Will Howard and what he's doing, you're not going to win. Like I don't have it. He's going to miss some receivers. I don't have an issue with that.
The reason why I brought it up is just because, like, I think that the thing that you saw about Chip Kelly that was a lot different is that he was scared and played very conservative. I think Ohio State was playing not to lose that game, and it's a bad idea.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that 100%. That was the worst called game that he's ever had, and I think that's a lot of the reason why he was doing those inside runs. He was hoping to get 3 yards to make the play calling easier, and it wasn't happening. And he was running a lot of short passes. And I think that Will Howard was in a bit of a groove. And sometimes when you see your quarterback in a groove, I think it makes you, okay, hey, I don't want to ruin this by doing something risky. And I think that messed up the play call. So yeah, I think that the offense was just pitiful. The offense was really pitiful. I don't have any complaints about the defense really. The front four got 3 sacks. We saw a spin move. I saw multiple spin moves. I haven't seen a spin move on this defensive line since Jim Knowles has arrived here. I saw multiple spin moves, and one of them actually led to a sack. I thought they looked really good. The rotational thing, I get what you guys are saying. We've bitched about the rotation not being there. But in my opinion, the rotation was almost getting out of hand in the other way. I don't know. I can't tell you what the snap count was, but I can tell you there were plays against Oregon where JTT was on the bench and Melton was in there on 3rd down. And it was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? If that's the dude, that's the guy you told me was an All-American all offseason. Why is he not in there on 3rd down? But you still saw that a little bit this past week. There was a 3rd down play where Melton was in, and I think it was JTT that was on the bench again, which I don't like. I think on those 3rd down plays, that's when you don't need to rotate. That's when you need to have your 4 studs in. But I mean, I thought that the defense was much more aggressive, especially with Latham. I thought what they did with the Latham Ransom injury was brilliant, moving Jordan Hancock back there, rotating Jermaine Matthews in more, and McLean. I thought they stepped up. I thought that the defense, I have no complaints. I know a lot of people were bitching about Igbinosun getting beat. I don't necessarily think he was getting beat. He was just playing super aggressive, and
that's how he is, though. I mean, we've watched him for a year and a half now. Like Igbinosun gets beat every once in a while, but the good part is that
okay with that. In all honesty, because
he usually doesn't allow yak, so like it's gonna happen. Wide receivers are gonna get open. Like
the only issue that
of the situation.
He kept getting flagged, but we've seen him play that kind of game before and not get flagged that often. So right. I'm not going to bitch about. I'm just not going to bitch about it. Some of the things there's so many other things to bitch about, like the offensive line. I mean, the defensive backs were the worst part, but again, Latham Ransom was out.
No, they weren't. The linebackers were the worst part. Cody Simon had 8 tackles. All of them were positive gain tackles. He led the team in tackles, and every one of his tackles that he made was downfield. That's fucking ridiculous.
He was credited with 3 tackles for loss in the game. He had that goal line stop for sure that was behind the line.
And I didn't think Sonny Styles was that bad. I mean, I don't know. We've bitched about the linebackers before.
Sonny gets lost too much.
And rightfully so. Huh?
Sonny gets lost too much.
You guys just have to understand.
I understand
the world that I.
Do you think that the linebackers look better or worse today than they did 3 weeks ago? And I think that they look better today.
No, they look the same.
You think they look the same?
They're still not playing gaps. They're not coming downhill, and they're not coming with bad intentions. Like they it's the same thing. Like they don't do anything that linebackers are supposed to do. And like when I was at Ohio State, if you were grading linebackers and that linebacker had a play that came through his gap and he made a tackle and it was a positive gain, that was a negative grade.
It's fair.
So if Cody Simon's responsible for A gap and they run and they gain positive yards through his A gap, it's a negative play.
And that's fair. I just don't think that at this point, the linebackers just are not going to be all Americans. They're not even going to be all conference, right? So my focus is more, okay, I have a level of expectation. Did you meet it? My expectation for the linebackers is lower than the 2 cornerbacks who I was told were going to be all Americans. Because the 2 All-Americans got burnt like fucking toast against Oregon. And they didn't get burnt that often today. And I still would say that the defensive backs were worse than the linebackers because Dylan Raiola was bad. I don't know if you guys could see it on TV, but there were more open wide receivers than there needed to be. And a lot of that was because Ransom was out, but Denzel Burke was.
Like I feel like it's because he puts Knowles doesn't adjust and he puts the defensive backs in extremely difficult positions.
I would agree.
If you're gonna play Iguanosin and you're gonna have him be very aggressive and press and play that boundary side, then every now and then you should probably give him safety help.
Yeah,
and Knowles is not interested in safety help.
That's the issue.
He's out of play.
Because that's what I was trying to say, right? Because I don't have an issue with how they played as individuals. But as a group, when I'm watching them, I'm seeing these Nebraska receivers get open. I'm seeing Dylan Raiola not hit it, and I'm thinking, man, they're really lucky, right? But when I zoom in and watch each one individually do their thing, I'm thinking, okay, that's not that bad. But you're right, it's the scheme. They're not. Yeah. They just don't. He doesn't provide any help. No. He doesn't provide any help. And did Malik Harford and McClain and those guys and Hancock, did they look out of place? Yes, that's another reason why they look bad. But I mean, that's also what are you supposed to do, right? Jordan Hancock doesn't even play there, so I'm trying to give him some grace for.
No, but then I mean, the other thing to remember is like if you're playing corner and you're in that one, and
thanks, Donovan. We're going to talk about the Penn State game in minutes.
Yeah, but if you're playing in that one and you're Iguanosin covering the boundary side guy playing press coverage, and that guy crosses you, runs a drag route. And those linebackers are just completely out of position and they don't help you at all. They don't slow the route down. And now you're chasing some guy that knows what he's doing. You don't know what he's doing. You just have to get on his hip and try to close the play out with no help from anybody else. And then I'm so tired of seeing Knowles blitz these safeties just to have them get destroyed by running back. Like, stop blitzing the safeties and blitz somebody that's going to, like, come downhill and make a problem. Like, this defense, I'm calling it now. You guys can think whatever. Penn State's going to win this game, and I hope that Ryan Day and Knowles get fired for it because
let's move on. Let's move on to it then. Wait, so is that your?
This is ridiculous. I think Penn State's going to whoop their ass. Penn State's going to and Singletary is going to run over Cody Simon the whole game, and you guys are going to be like, "Hey, how did Singletary run for 200 yards?" And it's going to be because the linebackers haven't played football all year long, and it's fair. So, like the guy that just said, we just had a quote on here that's, it's going to be an instant classic. No, it's going to be the last legitimate game that Ryan Day loses. That's what it's going to be.
Mike, do you want to make a comment before I dive into my Penn State?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I think a lot of this game is going to revolve around whether or not Drew Aller is going to be healthy enough to play. His backup. I'm probably going to butcher his name. It's Pribula, I believe is how you say it. He's more of a runner. Yeah, he's more of a runner. And, like, to be honest with you, that kind of scares me a little bit more than having a guy that's going to be sitting back there. I just, Aller can move, but he doesn't move like his backup does, Pribula. So I'm a little bit concerned about that area. I'm concerned about the rushing game for Ohio State. I just feel like they're not going to be able to really move the ball on the ground. Excuse me. They're going to have to rely on, I think teams are realizing that, there are some limitations to what Will Howard can do, and they're trying to make him beat them. And, as we could see the last few weeks, he's played well, but, he's obviously doesn't have that. Actually, it's probably not him. It's the whole team, to be honest with you. They don't have that fire. They're lacking. And I talked about this last week too. I'm like, there's not a guy that will go out there and like start a brawl. Like, when was the last time Ohio State started a brawl? Like when Igbenogson got spit on in Oregon, like there should have been some fists flying. Like, let's be real here. And nobody came to his defense. And that tells me that like this team is, I believe Ryan said it before, they're just individuals.
And they're soft.
Yeah. It seems like they are. And against the tough Penn State team, man, it's not going to be easy.
No, hey, like just you guys wait. You guys wait until we can't run, and then Will Howard has Abdul Carter in his face every play because we don't have anybody that can block him. And then wait till Penn State has 2 NFL running backs on their team, and they will. Remember, I've said it all year long. The first team that can isolate A-gap and run right through A-gap and be one-on-one with Cody Simon is going to run for 200 yards. And Penn State, they don't even need Drew Aller. All they need to do is secure A-gap and run the ball right at Cody Simon. And they're going to win. They're going to win by multiple 4 possessions because we're not going to be able to run, and Abdul Carter is going to wreck this game. Do we have anybody that can block Abdul Carter, Josh?
No, probably not.
Stand up ends.
Fryer has the chance, but I mean, they're not moving around.
And they'll just move him. They'll just move him on the other side.
I know. That's what I'm saying, though, Ryan. Like they're going to move him around.
He would smash Josh Fryer anyways. Here's the.
Josh Fryer's clearly our best tackle now, but.
Let me. First of all, I'm glad that Ryan's on the show now because he makes me look like I want to blow Ryan Day. That's how much he hates him. Okay. Secondly, he makes
it
like
makes no sense. You get gifted
the Ryan Day hater since the inception of this
and
podcast.
You fuck it up. It doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. Go ahead. This game's firing me up.
I'm just saying. When we started the podcast, I was by far and away the hater, but now I'm like defining myself defending. So, but I do want to, before I go into my Penn State preview, I do want to go over what you said, Mike, about Will Howard, because I'm not saying you're wrong, okay? But my issue is that a lot of Ohio State fans, and that's a lot of it's not just fans. I heard the chatter up in the press box, like, oh, does Will Howard have it? Does he have it? And I'm kind of getting pissed off when I hear that because that to me sounds like an excuse for Ryan Day. It's like, dude, Will Howard's a good quarterback. Is he CJ Stroud? No. Is he Justin Fields? No. Is he Dwayne Haskins? No. But he's probably better than any quarterback Urban Meyer had. Okay? He's probably a top 10 quarterback in college. How
come on, man? Let me stop you real quick.
Will Howard's not better than Justin Fields.
No. He said
Justin Fields was Ryan Day though.
Yeah,
Will Howard.
Please, can we stop slighting JT Barrett here, please?
No, I won't because that's my issue. JT Barrett was 6 feet tall, ran a 4.7 40, but he made good decisions.
I'd take JT on this team over Will Howard any day of the week.
That's my problem because every Ohio State fan says that, and the reason that they're saying that is because they put all this emphasis on the quarterback. That's not the quarterback. That's Ryan Day. If Urban Meyer had Will Howard, he'd be running away with the Heisman right now. If you can't win a chance, and you don't have to agree with me, Mike, but you do have to agree that Will Howard is a top 10 quarterback in college football. If you can't, you have to be able to win with a guy like that. And all these Ohio State fans are making excuses like Georgia, like we didn't just watch Georgia win with Stetson goddamn Bennett. Sure. You know what I mean? Like we divert the blame to the quarterback, and I don't know why we do that. CJ Stroud was the best quarterback in Ohio State history. Didn't win fucking dick. Why do we have all these Ohio State fans blaming Will Howard? It makes no sense to me.
This will support what you're saying, Josh. Like the difference between Ryan Day and Urban Meyer is that Urban Meyer takes what he has and he makes those guys better by adjusting. and he wins a lot of football games. Like Urban Meyer would have caused tremendous problems with Kyle McCord, because Urban Meyer would have switched his offense to a 3-step, 5-step, and he would have got the ball out of Kyle McCord's hands immediately. And so that's like the lack of adjustment. It comes back to this lack of adjustment. Sure. Like, you need to change what you're doing to do the things that Will Howard does well. Will Howard doesn't throw a hash to sideline ball very well. So, like, let's not do that. You know what I mean? Like, Urban Meyer would have adjusted his whole entire offense to fit what Will Howard's good at, and Ryan Day doesn't do that.
Exactly.
And Jim Knowles doesn't do that either.
And the things he's really good at, he's really good at. You better in the country than Will Howard at that. It's just like JT Barrett. You don't like JT Barrett because JT Barrett is Ohio State's version of Caleb Williams. You like JT Barrett because Urban Meyer said, okay, this guy can't throw the ball further than 20 yards, but he's really intelligent and he's quick. What can we do? Oh, I got an idea. Every game we're going to run 40 quarterback draws and then 3 slant routes or 80. You know what I mean? Like, that was the goddamn offense. And you can't tell me any differently, because Mike Thomas is one of the most talented receivers to ever grace the field at Ohio State, and he left with like 3 receptions, right? Why? Because we didn't have a quarterback that could get him the ball. And I love JT. I tutored the guy. A really good college quarterback. But that's the problem, is that they're not giving Urban Meyer credit. They're giving the credit to JT Barrett, and that's fine. No. You're allowed to do that. But why is Will Howard getting the blame? He couldn't win with CJ Stroud. He couldn't win with Justin Fields. Why are we blaming Will? Why are we doing this again? How many?
No, the reason why people are blaming him now is because these kids make money.
Well, they're paying him. Be clear too.
They're paying him to play quarterback. That's why.
I'm not blaming anything on Will Howard. I'm just saying, if I had to choose, I'm taking JT Barrett. I just feel like JT he is smarter. He understood the game a little bit better. He makes quicker reads. He knew when to move on from plays when there was nothing going on. Look, Will Howard can do that too. I know, Josh, you're like, I could feel your eyes through the screen.
Well, we both said he was a very intelligent player at the beginning of the year. That's why Ryan Day picked him over Cam Ward.
I am not disparaging that. I'm just saying I think JT is a better quarterback just because of he had that fire, right? I have not seen that from Will.
I think that
the fire comes from whether you want to win or not, whether you're really actually serious about winning.
No, it comes from. I can tell you this.
I think it comes from different places.
Hey, any fire that you saw that JT Barrett had came from having an absolute lunatic head coach. Urban Meyer, you have to, if you don't have fire like that, Urban Meyer, like, you won't survive with Urban Meyer. But I think that Will Howard is very fired up. Like in his press conferences this week in Pennsylvania, he did a great job. And I think that Will Howard is just about better at everything than JT Barrett ever was at anything. I think Will Howard
is better at everything. Fact, what you just said. He's bigger, he's faster, got a bigger arm. That's a statistic.
He's more athletic. He's definitely more athletic.
We can measure.
And he's definitely smart. I mean, he did a good job. I mean, think about how hard it would be to get Kansas State relevant. Like, he did that. JT Barrett was always on Ohio State. We never got to see what he would do at another school.
I'm not bashing JT Barrett, but like your state. Mike, I saw you rolling your eyes. But name me a measurable that JT Barrett was better than Will Howard at. If you were in the NFL combine,
quarterback's not about measurables. It's just not. Let's be real here. It's about understanding the game, and it's not always about who has the best arm strength and who's the. Like Drew Brees did not have the greatest arm strength. Yeah, he could throw the ball far, but his arm strength was not the greatest. Let's be real. He was
not when he was in college. It was.
That's a cop out.
In college, it's not though. It's not though.
It is because Ryan Day picked him out. Ryan Day picked out Will Howard. This is this guy.
So just to give you guys,
can you name 9 quarterbacks better than him in college football? I can't.
Yeah, but just to give you guys an example, like maybe it's hard to see.
No, but if I did a little research, yeah, I mean, I'm not.
Couldn't.
Hey, all the argument is, Mike,
and you can name 10 quarterbacks off the top of your head, but you can't name any better. You know what I mean? Why would you not be able to name a better?
All of this argument is Josh is saying that Ohio State's problem is definitely coaching, and 100%. Mike, you're saying, Mike, you're kind of saying that, like, hey, Will Howard may not be like what compared to these other guys, but In this certain situation, JT Barrett, Will Howard, whatever, I agree with Josh that the failure to adjust is the biggest problem.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I mean, we've talked about this before. We've talked about it at length that there is a unwillingness to make those adjustments. And we thought it was going to happen now that Ryan Day isn't calling plays anymore, but it's still happening. And I don't know how much input he has right now, but the Chip Kelly that we've seen in the past was not the Chip, we did not see that same Chip Kelly on Saturday. So I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying, like, to me, it just feels like at the end of the day, I just again, it's that extra. It's not the measurables. It's not any of that. And I just think, and yes, maybe it was coaching. You guys might be right, but I think that it's not the end all be all there. I think that some guys are just fiery, and you want that kind of leadership. You want those guys to be able to take over the team and say, let's go.
I agree. I agree with that part.
Will Howard does that. I don't think Will Howard does that. Yeah, he might sound great.
Let's put that to the side. Let me ask you one more question. Okay.
Sure.
All right. Because here's where I'm at, right? I could say the same shit about the offensive line. Well, none of them had that fire. None of them had that fire, but I won't.
Well, I don't think this whole team has any fire, to be honest with you.
And that's fair. But that's my question to you, right? Is that let's fuck Will Howard. Let's use CJ Stroud as an example.
Sure.
Because I know that you're not going to sit here and tell me that there was nothing wrong with CJ Stroud. That boy got plenty of fires we're seeing now. Why couldn't they win with CJ Stroud?
Well,
that's my question.
I mean, it's clear. It's clearly it was the defensive issue. Obviously, that was the. Come on, they could score enough points. CJ Stroud was. I mean, he had 3 NFL receivers. You've got you've got good backs as well. I mean, the reason why they couldn't win is because they couldn't make the proper coaching decisions. And I don't think you guys are wrong on this. They couldn't make the right coaching decisions to get them in a position to win those games. Like you look back at the Georgia game, and they should have won that, right? Like, I don't think anybody's going to argue with you when you say, like, Ohio State should have beat Georgia, right? And they should have won.
I would argue that all the time because they lost.
I mean, hell, even Kirby Smart said it. He said that
you mean the guy who's being nice at the press conference after he wins?
I don't think he's being nice.
Mike,
he's being nice because he didn't have to say that.
Not only are you picking a game that they lost, but you're using an example of a season where they slipped in the back door to get to the playoffs because Lincoln Riley shit down his leg. They're the only team that made the playoffs that year.
Hey, but let me ask you guys this real fast. Because, and both of you guys are going to have very valid opinions on this, but when's the last time you had a guy that played for Ohio State that had that fire? Because I see a lack of guys with that fire since Ryan Day took over.
I think that comes from coaching. I think a lot of the fire comes from coaching.
Justin Fields.
Okay.
100%. Would you not want to follow?
Wasn't Justin Fields?
Would you not want to follow a guy who gets blasted in Clemson with cracked ribs and comes back 2 plays later and throws a touchdown? Like, come on. Like,
yeah, but that's a guy that you want to follow. That's a guy that's played a long time ago now. So, like, who?
I mean, it's recent history. It's less than 5 years ago.
I mean, I'll give you that because that's a Ryan Day quarterback. That's fine.
Right.
But
that's the last guy. That's the last guy in my eyes. Like, CJ was awesome, but he's a little bit.
CJ wasn't a very good leader, I don't think. Like in college,
he's more on the quiet side. Right.
So
yeah,
So
CJ's
I guess
awesome.
because everything you're describing, I blame on coaching. He's picking these guys.
No, you're right. It comes down to coaching.
I guess that's my struggle. But Mike, you just seem like you don't want to blame coaching 100% yet. And it's
I think it's not just coaching. Like, you have to have that fire. It's not just coaching.
How can you blame Justin Fry for 100% of the offensive line struggles, but you're still hesitant to blame Ryan Day for 100%?
I'm blaming Justin Fry because it's been a constant miss on the recruiting side of things. They go after guys.
Not his fault.
I think,
but either way, to Mike's point, someone's not closing the deal. Either way, I get.
Okay, right. Whether it be Ryan Day, whoever, they're not closing the deal on these big guys that they spend so many resources going after, right?
I agree with you.
And that puts us behind the ball, and then on top of that, like the development, right? Like, Harris Johnson was going to be a first round pick, where the hell he went, Like, let's be real here.
Agreed.
But who else? Who else? Who else
Well,
has been
I don't know if
developed?
you can really give him. You can't even really give him credit for DeJuan Jones because
Right.
that was under.
They
But either way, I agree with you there too.
And he kind of messed that up anyways, right? They start him off as a guard. They really didn't play
Whatever,
early.
sure. I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
So let me say.
So like I think it goes both ways. I think like the fire it's sometimes from within and it's sometimes from outside sources. But when you get both of them, it seems to work really well, and clearly it does in football. And I think sometimes if you're getting it from the coach, but you're not showing it yourself, and you're not doing those things that qualify yourself as a leader and make people want to follow you, that's
let me
not
ask
having
you
that
this.
fire. And that's what I'm seeing.
So let me ask you this. Let's say that you're right. Let's say that the coach can't light a fire under your ass, which I vehemently disagree with. Okay.
Sure.
But that's fine. He's now picked. He's picked 3 quarterbacks in a row. He's picked them too. This is Ohio State. He's getting all these guys, all 3 of the two guys before him were 5-star recruits. This guy was basically a 5-star transfer portal addition.
Sure.
And all 3 of those guys didn't have the quote unquote fire needed to win anything.
Sure.
Who at what point do you blame Ryan Day?
I mean, it's coming to a point where you're getting close to blaming Ryan Day, but I still feel like it's still not 100% on Ryan Day. I think you could, like if I'm putting a percentage on it, maybe 60-40, because, he is the leader of this team. I really don't think that's the case, Josh. I mean, you played college athletics. Either you wanted to do it or you didn't, right?
No, but I can tell you. Now, I wasn't good, so I'm a bad example, but I can tell you with 100% certainty, and I can call 10 dudes right now that would agree with me. As soon as Coach Carlson opened his mouth, I did not give a fuck, bro. Like I can tell you 100% that guy did. I did not give a shit what that guy said. I did not inspire me. I didn't have a fire to do anything. I can tell you that I was way more motivated under Stacey Adams, the guy before him, than Dale Carlson. Stacey Adams put his arm around me. He was the guy that recruited me. He was the one that put me in a room. I was going to I was making sure I was at the gym on time. And again, I'm not a good football player. There's a reason why I sucked, right? So I'm not the best example, but I can call guys who didn't suck who would also tell you that the coach has a lot to do with that, right? It's really hard to play for somebody when this guy. I used a pretty extreme example. Like I said, I'm not a good football player and I didn't play for a very good coach.
Sure.
Yeah, but let me ask you guys this, because this is another problem with Ohio State right now. It's impossible to have that fire and to have guys have that fire when you're putting people in positions that playing time not based on merit.
I think that matters.
If you have a bunch of guys that didn't earn their position, like that was when I was at Ohio State, like Curtis Grant and some of those guys really had to like fight to be in that position. I told you guys about Corey Brown. The guy had to fight with a guy that was trying to throw him off the team, Urban Meyer, to start. So yeah, like when that guy he earned his stripes and he's out there playing, people respected and listened to that guy. So like when you're having a bunch of dudes that are playing positions and they're getting playing time with no merit, you're not going to have the leadership quality that you need to have, because the other people on the team do not respect the guys that are playing because nothing was given off merit. Like, do you guys think that some of the people in the positions that they're playing are the best people at it?
No, and I agree with, and I agree with you. I think that's my point. I mean, if your coach doesn't motivate you, what purpose do they serve? I mean, any intelligent guy could go out there and call plays. It's kind of a package deal. I think that's how a lot of these NFL guys get in trouble, because they're not good at reaching it. I mean, whatever. I won't belabor the point. One more story though. When we were down in San Diego, Ryan Lair, he's not listening, so it doesn't matter. We were getting our ass beat like 72-0, and the MGMT comes on the stereo at San Diego Stadium, and you can see him dancing on the sidelines. And Coach Carlson was so pissed the next day, and we all just laughed at him when he walked out. That's such a lack of respect.
So then, and then another point. Okay, so like in Mike, this will help drive my point home. when Josh played at Valparaiso University, in my opinion, the best quarterback that we had on our team, his last name was Schaefer. Quinn Schaefer was the best quarterback we had on our team. But Quinn Schaefer was not like a mobile guy. He was like a Kyle McCord type guy, pocket passer, won 4 state championships in Indiana when he was in high school. But he didn't fit the mold that Dale Carlson wanted. And so Dale Carlson started a guy named Hoffman. Okay? Yep. Hoffman did not get that position based off of merit. So guess what? People didn't give a fuck about him or blocking for him or catching his passes or whatever. And that makes it hard. So, like, there's a situation right there. Like, to me, Quinn Schaefer was the best quarterback we had, Josh, but they weren't going to be willing to change the offense that we ran to use a guy like that. And so he started a guy that didn't really – wasn't Hoffman like a freshman, Josh, and Quinn was like a junior?
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
You're friends with Schaefer. You're friends with Schaefer.
And Quinn was good. Quinn was good.
No, Quinn was a 4-time state champion from Fort Wayne Bishop Luers in Indiana. He was a great quarterback.
Whatever. We'll move on. I'm confident that. I mean, it is what it is. I just feel like the blame is being distributed to the wrong person. But let's move on to the Penn State game. Let me give you what my rundown is. Penn State has a great defensive line. Nebraska had a good defensive line. Penn State has a great defensive line. This is arguably the best defensive line in college football. Abdul Carter, we talked about it already, right? He'll go down with Courtney Brown, LeVar Arrington, some of the greats. I don't know who's going to block him. If it's me, that question came up earlier. How are we going to block him? He's going to constantly be double teamed. If he's not double teamed, he's getting chipped by. You're going to see a lot of running back chips, which is a shame because these running backs are so talented. You really don't want them to waste your time blocking, but you are. You're going to see a lot of tight ends staying in for blocking. Again, it's a shame because it's not really what they're built for, especially with Kazmarek out. But that's what you're going to have to do to stop Abdul Carter. Danny Dennis Sutton, he got hurt. He got a groin injury. I don't know if he's going to play this week. We all know how groin injuries are, and he suffered it last week against Wisconsin. He tried to come back in the second half, was not unable to finish the game. That's a bad dude. That's a big bad dude. Former 5-star.
He's very good. He's very good.
Yeah, so Ohio State may luck out and miss him.
Yeah,
those two guys pretty much block. Yep, on the interior, they have Zane Durant and Devon J. Thomas changed his name in the offseason. Both those guys, very stout interior guys, maybe the best defensive tackles that they're going to see. I know the Oregon guys got a lot of attention. Those guys are quicker to the hole. They make more splash plays, yada, yada. The Penn State guys don't fucking move. That's the scary part, right? So that's going to be scary because the offensive line, we talked about how miserable they were against Nebraska. Penn State's defensive line. Nicholas Singleton on the offensive side of the ball at running back. Ryan, you already talked about it. Not only is that dude 6 foot, 226 pounds, and just ferocious as a running back, he's also been a hell of a receiver this year. And
that catch he made last week was nuts.
Yeah, and that's where if you think the linebackers suck and the linebackers can't do anything, I mean, they're the ones that are going to be primarily responsible for covering him out of the backfield, so they're really going to be tested. The Penn State defensive backfield is the third thing I want to go over. A talented backfield. They had, what was his name? He got hurt this year. Come on, guys. Come on. The Penn State defensive back that got hurt, he was supposed to be a stud. God damn it. He was going to be a first-round pick.
It's not Joey Porter Jr., is it?
No, he's gone. Whatever. Everybody thought that the Penn State defensive backs were going to suffer. I think, was it Winston? Yes, Winston. Winston got hurt, missed the rest of the year. Yes, he played safety for him, but Jalen Reed has stepped up. He's the leading tackler, and we talked getting tackles 10 yards down the field. That's not really his game, dude. He's very aggressive. He'll get up in your face, good in coverage, good in run support, badass safety. The other safety, Zachy Wheatley, he had 10 tackles last week against Wisconsin, another guy who's all over the field, kind of showed up out of nowhere this season. And then they got 3 cornerbacks, right? They played Jalen Kimber, who was the transfer from Florida. I thought he was going to kind of suck. He was at Georgia originally, couldn't play there. Well, he got hurt. But whatever. And then when he went to Florida and got hurt again, and then he transferred to Penn State. So that's the guy that I kind of thought was going to suck this year. No, he's been pretty damn elite. AJ Harris on the other side, that's the Penn State NIL guy, right? Every school's got the NIL guy now. The big transfer from Georgia, he's been pretty much everything that they paid for, absolute shutdown. And then Cam Miller's like their nickelback guy. That's another guy who's been very, very, very good. It would be a number one cornerback in most Big Ten teams. So the wide receivers are going to get tested. The linebackers are going to get tested. The offensive line is going to get tested. I still think Ohio State wins this. I take Ohio State. Ohio State is favored by 4 points. I would still take Ohio State. I think that they're going to be focused. If the offensive line issues that we bitch about shouldn't be issues. Mike, I'm with you. I'm changing my mind about Justin Fry. I don't want to fire him right now, but if the season were ended today, that dude be fired. Okay, but I want to continue to give him an opportunity. I'm not panicking yet, kind of like what you're doing with Ryan Day, and we'll see what he can put together for Penn State.
Right.
We'll see what he can put together for Penn State. I'm going to put a lot of trust in him. I think Will Howard is much better than everybody else thinks. Apparently, so wild to me. And I think the defensive line played a lot better. I kind of shocked you guys were bitching about the rotation. So I'm ready to ride, and I'm ready to ride with Ohio State again.
We know your pick, Ryan. I think we heard you take a Penn State.
We heard a lot.
I think he's
Ohio State didn't deserve to beat Nebraska. They didn't deserve to beat Nebraska.
That's true, dude. If they had any other quarterback but Dylan Raiola, during the offseason, we needed when we do our recruiting episodes, Mike, I want you to explain to me I know Dylan Raiola was good. I'm really not trying to shit on Dylan Raiola. He's going to be very, very good in 3 years. But dude, if they would have had the Stone kid from Marshall, they would have won. But when I look at Dylan Raiola throwing the ball in pregame compared to Julian Sand throwing the ball in pregame, the only difference is that Royala's got 40 pounds on him. So he looks more like he's ready to play. Yep. But I'm kind of shocked that there was so much hype around this dude. I'm just so shocked. But whatever, I don't want to waste time. We'll talk about it.
I just can't wait till we have these recruiting episodes because I just do not believe that most people or even Mike understand how recruiting works because Justin Fry has nothing to do with those linemen. I'm not saying. And I think that someone I was talking to another beat writer there, and we were talking about Dylan Raiola, and I said the same thing. I said, this guy does not look. He's just not good. He doesn't look good at all. And he's like, well, yeah, but he looks like a Big Ten quarterback, and he does. He's got, like I said, and that's what I was trying to tell you too. When you and I took a photo of the Devin Brown and Will Howard and Julian Sane side by side, and Julian Sane looks like a child. He looks like a child. I would be scared to play him as well. Yeah.
He's really not that small. He just looks like a kid, because he is. Dylan Raiola doesn't look like that. Dylan Raiola does look like a grown ass man, but he don't move in it. I didn't think his ball was prettier. It didn't seem like he was making better decisions. But whatever. I don't want to waste our time talking about Raiola anymore. Mike, where you at? What do you think?
Oh man, I think it's going to be very similar to last week. I think it's going to be close. James Franklin's going to be James Franklin. I think he's going to pee down his leg.
Thanks for the comment. You guys are both named Ryan. Good one, Ryan.
I think James Franklin's going to pee down his leg at the end of the game, like he almost always does against Ohio State. I am going to take Penn State, though. I think Ohio State wins in a very, very close one, but I think it's close. I think it's like field goal, 2-3 points, So I'm going to take Penn State, but I think the Buckeyes win.
Let me say one more thing, too, about Penn State. The biggest, because I do want to talk about their biggest weakness because I made them sound like an all-star team. Their biggest weakness is their wide receivers. Their wide receivers are bad. I know that we kind of had arguments about Julian Fleming. You viewed him as kind of a scrub, and I said, no, he was okay. And I still stand by that, but he's like their number 2 guy. He's their number 2 guy. That's the issue. I was cool with him being like the Ohio State number 3.
10 catches, 148 yards, no touchdowns.
Yeah, and I think 3 of those receptions came last week in his defense, but that's their number 2 guy.
This isn't what Penn State does.
Dude's a scrub.
Right,
yeah, they run the ball.
But my assumption
and
would be
Tyler Warren throws every once in a while, which I am extremely afraid of because he is awesome.
But that's the thing. Is he awesome, or is he the only guy that they have that can catch the ball?
No.
I mean,
he is going to. No. I think you misheard me. He throws the ball, is what I said, and that scares the crap. It scares the crap out of me because.
So I do.
Because
go on, I'm sorry.
This defense is so built on swarming. They're going to make a stupid decision when he has the ball because he's a really good pass catching tight end also. And then there's going to be a play that Penn State's going to hit on big, and it's going to be him throwing the damn ball. And I know it's going to happen. I know it's.
I can see it. I know it's going. But I do think that's Ohio State's saving grace is that their Penn State receivers, they're not good. I mean, they're probably worse than Nebraska's receivers.
But the question is can Ohio State stop the run?
I don't know. Well, and that's also kind of leads me to the Drew Aller thing. That's why I think Drew Aller being out. I don't think like Dylan Gabriel is clearly vital to the Oregon operation, right? I know I gave him a hard time earlier on in the season, but the way his style is and the way he maneuvers, he's very much a point guard. Drew Aller is like a lower level of that because I feel like the reason why the passing game has been pretty successful at Penn State is because Drew Aller's been pretty good about just nailing guys in the fucking numbers. The backup, I'm not going to act like I know the backup. I don't know. Maybe he's just as good. I don't know.
He's a little bit more of a runner.
I think. You said that the Penn State wide receivers are the problem. I think Julian Fleming's better than Mike thinks Julian Fleming is. I think that Wallace is good. Harrison.
Well,
Wallace,
Mike thinks he sucks, so that's fair.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't like.
I also think he's better than shitty for the record. Yeah,
I do. I think,
but I think Harrison Wallace is good, and I think that Tyler Warren is going to cause major problems. Who do we have that can cover Tyler Warren, Josh?
Ohio State has a very difficult time covering tight ends.
I'll bet you that Cody Simon can't cover him. Well, I bet you that right now.
I think they're probably going to put Sonny Styles on him, but that's a different question than is he good, right? Ohio State's lack of intelligence to guard the tight end is different than me being. He's an okay tight end, but we've seen. I mean, like Colson Loveland, that guy's a bad dude. That dude's he's big.
I think Tyler Warren is the best tight end they played against.
Ohio State? No, Luke Lachey. Luke Lachey is way better. But the problem
we'll see who's way better.
But that's not really fair because but the problem with why Luke Lachey couldn't dominate against Ohio State was because that's all they had. That's all they had in the passing game. Penn State does do a better job. Well, I guess we'll see because, like you said, if the backup quarterback plays, I don't know. That's the thing. I just don't know. I don't know enough about this backup quarterback to really.
I'll bet you that Tyler Warren is a major problem for Ohio State. And then after this, I'll accept your apology next week.
That doesn't mean that he's better than Luke Lachey, though. Luke Lachey was getting double teamed by Ohio State. Like Ohio State's defense was like, okay, Luke Lachey is the only receiver they have.
Okay, we'll see who's better. We'll see who's better in the NFL.
Oh, okay. I'll take that bet. I'll take that bet all day long. Okay, I'll take that all day long. All right, we're moving on to.
Yeah, let's get to those picks.
All right. Okay. All right. First game. Minnesota favored by 2 points against the Illinois.
Go over last week's.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Good catch, Mike. Good catch. All right. Last week, Chris went 5-3, making his total record 44-50-2. Josh, which is me, I went 6-2, making my whole total record 46-2. And Mike, you also went 6-2. Making your total record 47-48-2, nipping on the heels. And Ryan, you also went 6-2. I screwed up. I took Washington. You guys killed it when you took Nebraska, but you guys also fucked up when you took Michigan State. That's where you guys went wrong. I screwed up on Washington, and then Chris screwed up when he took Maryland. Those were kind of like the one-offers where it was always like, well, everybody else went somewhere else. Yeah. All right, moving on. Minnesota favored by 2 over the Illinois Fighting Illini. Mike, what do you think, buddy?
Why? I don't know. Illinois.
Really?
Yeah.
You said that was a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I think Illinois is really good. Yeah, they got their asses handed to them last week against Oregon, but Oregon's also really, really good. They're at another level. But I think Illinois is very good. They're just not like championship good, but I think they are way better than Minnesota.
Coach, what you got?
Illinois.
Really? All right, I'm going to go with Minnesota. I think Minnesota's kind of found the groove.
Yeah.
That's my island. That's my island.
That was great. You don't have
I like that.
There it is.
There we go. All right. I don't know. Minnesota looked good last week against Maryland. I know it's Maryland, but they feel like they found. The thing I like about Minnesota is that they found their identity. Once they find their identity, they seem to be pretty good. Illinois, they kind of are like they're kind of like also like Maryland, and what I think is going to be Indiana this year. Where like once they get into the meat of the Big Ten schedule, I feel like they're probably going to fall apart. But I guess we'll see. All right, next game, Northwestern favored by 1.5 over Purdue. Mike.
What a close game.
Man, Purdue is so bad. Purdue is so bad. Yeah, take the Wildcats. I still think they're a bad team, but Purdue's just so much worse than they are.
Coach,
I'm gonna take what was the spread?
Northwestern is favored by 1.5.
Yeah, I'm taking Purdue. Taking Purdue.
Purdue is so bad. I know they're coming off an off week and they're at home, but dude, that guy's gonna be
so bad.
Ryan Walters is so bad. He was a bad hire.
He's number one of the betting odds for the first coach to get fired.
He's so bad.
Or the next coach to get fired.
Had a defensive coordinator of a Brett Bielema led team. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you do that? They run, you know what I mean? Like Brett Bielema was in charge of first of all, he's in charge of everything. Second of all, he runs a ball, like a time of possession, ball control offense. Mm-hmm. So what do you mean? You're gonna be on the field for like 5 plays? Like it just didn't make any sense to me. They don't even know who their starting quarterback is going to be. They have an or on their depth chart. And then he came out today and said that they're going to run a 2-quarterback system. Oh, yeah, that's worked out. That's worked really well in the past. Dude, fuck that. Northwestern sucked last week, too. I'm not going to say they're not Northwestern's world beaters.
This is like the worst game the Big Ten could possibly produce.
Uh-huh.
You know what, though? I think it's going to be the best game of the weekend, dude. I'm so stoked by watching this game. Because I just want to – there's such unique –
You're probably going to watch it over Ohio State and Penn State, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right, next game.
It's going to be less depressing. It's going to be less depressing for the Buckeye fans. That's for sure.
That is for sure.
So Oregon is favored by 15.5 over Michigan. Mike, what you thinking?
That's a lot. I think. Do we have any idea whether Will Johnson's going to play this week or not?
I have no idea, dude.
Okay, because he missed.
Michigan's so bad.
He missed this past week, but I think that he clearly, he's arguably the top corner in the country. He clearly makes a big difference. 100%. And I think and especially when you're going up against an Oregon offense that has that many really good receivers on it, that they need him. So my pick is very reliant on whether or not.
You just don't throw the ball. You just don't throw the ball at that.
Yeah, but then you erase half. But if you erase half of the side of the field, Ryan, that's like his job, and he does it.
Yeah, Bradley Roby did that for us when I was there.
Right, exactly, and that's what you want out of a corner, right?
I shouldn't say rough, but he has not played. He has not played like an All-American this year.
Well, when you don't know what plays are coming, yes, of course you're not going to be as good. but
I don't think he's playing this weekend, based off of what
I'm anticipating him also not playing. I'm going to take the Ducks.
Okay, but. So if he was playing though, you would take Michigan?
I think
that's so interesting. That's such an odd swing.
I think he's so good that he would Josh, keep it close. I would still think that Oregon would win, but I'm not sure they would cover.
Josh, keep in mind that if you have a corner and you say he's not playing like an All-American, that's probably means he is playing like an All-American because they're not throwing to his side at all.
No, they are. That's what I'm saying. Like Fresno State, you can go back and watch the Fresno State game.
They picked on him a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, just like Burke's been beat up.
He's had a couple games where they're not picking. I want to be very clear. They're not picking on him. Oregon was picking on Burke. No one picked on Will Johnson, but no one has been like, we're not going to throw over there like I thought they would. Does that make sense?
I mean, again, they don't know what plays are coming. So,
I don't know if he's playing better than Burke, to be honest with you. But yeah, you're probably right. Ryan, what you got?
Oregon.
I'm with you guys. I'm right with Oregon. Oregon looks. I think I might have been wrong about them when I was talking shit about them earlier. Of course, this might be just me being biased as an Ohio State fan since we've already lost. Now I'm pumping them up. I'm pumping them up because I'm an Ohio State fan. But Oregon has dude, we all talked about Illinois being a pretty okay team, and they fucking pounded them, dude. And they pounded Purdue coming off that big win. I think Oregon's found their groove, dude. They're dangerous.
Yep.
All right, next game.
They got
Indiana Fusion. Yeah, they do. I think you nailed it there. The momentum. Indiana favored by 7 points over Michigan State. Mike, tell me where you're going with this one.
7. I'd take them at 21. Or 8.
Jesus.
7, 8.
Christ.
I'd take them at 21. Even without their quarterback.
Curtis Rourke.
Yep.
The most
Indiana
athletic
wins.
quarterback in the Big Ten. Well,
Indiana
but they got to win by more than 7. You taking them more than 7?
Oh yeah.
Yep, I take it.
Oh yeah. Uh-oh. I knew it was coming. I could see your eyes.
Is it playing?
Yeah,
Is it playing? Okay.
Yeah.
I can't hear. Yeah, dude. Oh, I keep doing this, and every week I'm wrong. It's so funny because at the beginning of the year, you thought at the beginning of the year you would think that I want to stroke off Signetti, and I still do, but it's just dude, there's no way they don't have the depth. How are they doing this? How are they doing? Curtis Rourke went down and they still
good coaching. Good coaching. Adjusting.
No amount of
System.
Yeah. Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. So Michigan State has looked like shit, but Jonathan Smith is slowly figuring it out. They're figuring out their identity. 7 points is a lot of points at home. Let's rock and roll with Michigan State, boys. All right, next game. UCLA is getting 7.5 points from the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I repeat, the Nebraska Cornhuskers are favored by 7.5 over UCLA. Mike, what are you thinking?
I think Nebraska bounces back in a nice way for them. Again, they're facing one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, so it'll be pretty good.
I think Nebraska covers. Yeah,
this one's a hard one. I'm with you guys. I'm taking Nebraska too. I think Nebraska is a legitimately good team. I said it last week. This is not just me being Ohio State biased. UCLA is not good. The thing that's scary is that UCLA is coming off of a bye week. But I don't think Deshaun Foster's a good coach, so I don't know if that matters. I'm also scared of Yeah, they're in LA.
I'm sure you guys don't know too much about UCLA, but our football program, but we're in LA.
But I'm also a little scared too because I know Nebraska's beat up. I watch those guys walk up the tunnel all limping and shit. I'm like, man, whoo. But I'm still gonna ride with them because UCLA is that bad. All right, next game. Wisconsin is getting 3.5 from the Iowa Hawkeyes. Mike, where are you going with this?
Man, this one's tough. Like, these are two very evenly matched teams, I think. I'm going to go with the home team here. I'm going to take Iowa just because of home field advantage.
Coach?
I think Wisconsin is played Penn State pretty tough, and I think that they're going to build on it, so I'm taking Wisconsin.
I'm with you. I'm taking Wisconsin too. I thought they played like shit last week. Penn State. I was never when I was watching that game. I was never in any. I actually had money on Penn State given 6, and I was never in any fear of losing my money. I felt like Penn State pretty much ran them out. I mean, I don't know. I just felt like they really dominated physically. With that said, Iowa looked really good last week, but Iowa was playing Northwestern. But I do think Wisconsin's talented. I do think that. I mean, you never want to say like losing your starting quarterback is a blessing, but the backup. He can sling the rock. It feels like, and they're running the ball more too. Luke Fickell's abandoned the dairy rate a little bit, which is good. All right, last game of the Big Ten slate. USC is favored by 3 points over Washington. Mike, what do you think?
Home dogs, baby. I'm taking the Huskies.
Coach?
I take USC.
I'm taking USC too, man. Washington. I took Washington last. The Washington sucks. They. Yeah, I actually was the only. I defended them last week like an idiot. They're terrible, dude. They're so bad. USC, I think, isn't USC coming off a bye week too? Yeah. No. That's right. They pounded the shit out of Rutgers on Friday. So you're getting an extra day of rest. Rutgers is pretty tough too. I'm going to give them credit for that win. I'm riding with USC.
All right.
That's it, man.
We don't have to go over fantasy scores because Josh, you are continually kicking our ass every week. So
I haven't checked it. It would take me 2 minutes.
You're up. Let me see here. Let me just load it up here.
Yeah,
You have
I'm winning.
you have almost a 200-point lead here.
Yeah, Brock is the right behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like 160. Not really right behind. He needs like an extra week to catch up to you. So I don't think that's going to happen. It's more of a battle of second place and last place here, which is continuing to be the case as we continue with the season. So before we wrap this up, I do have a question for you guys that I want to pose to you, which flashed into my mind about midway through the game. And I didn't say anything in our group chat, but I wanted to address it here. Is this team a championship caliber team?
Championship caliber team without championship caliber coaches.
Okay. I'll take that answer.
That is also my answer, but I do want to put an asterisk there. I am much more optimistic than Coach. I'm not quite you, Mike. I
Sure.
definitely blame Ryan Day for everything that happens. But I do think that there's a middle ground where the team is so good. And Chip Kelly, I think last week was a blip. I think Chip Kelly is a great offensive coordinator. I really do. He coached a bad game last game. I don't think that's going to be. It's not a trend yet. So I got a lot of faith in them to figure it out. There's enough talent here. They should be able to figure this out. I really believe that.
But that's the question, though. Will they figure it out? Because, Coach, I want you to expand on this. You're about to. I don't want to interrupt you, so go ahead.
No, I don't think that they figure it out. I think that their egos are too big. I think that I think Ryan Day with the offense thinks that it's not my system, it's the players. I think Knowles thinks it's not my system, it's the players, and they're never going to change. I think that they have ulterior motives for who they're playing and who's getting time, which makes you lose the team aspect of the game. I think that you're going to see like a mass exodus after this year. I think Ohio State's in big trouble as far as retaining people. And so right now, if you already have people that are checked out mentally that don't even want to be there, I think that's hard to build a team based on that. And I just refuse to believe that that you can overcome those type of shortcomings. Like Urban Meyer would kick, scream, and drag these guys and put them in such positions. Do you guys remember the movie Miracle? Like with Brooks, the coach
Sure.
Brooks?
Sure.
Urban Meyer had a very similar approach. Like you didn't have time to worry about anything else because you just hated him every day. He was the enemy.
Beautiful.
And I don't think that that's how Ohio State operates. So Urban Meyer would cause you to become a really close-knit coaching staff and a really close-knit team because he was such like a tyrant to everybody. But what it did was it was kind of genius because then the coaches had a really good relationship with their players. And, you're constantly fighting to defend your players because Urban Meyer's constantly like shitting on them. So it gets you closer. We just don't have that team element. It's a bunch of individuals out there that are kind of out to get theirs and out to get their own. And the egos are too big. And so I just don't think it's a fixable thing. I think that it's going to be a massive disappointment this season, and this will be the last year that we hear about Ryan Day and Knowles. I think all of them get fired. Mark Pantoni probably keeps his job because he produces top 10 classes every year. Mick Moriarty probably keeps his job because he's become a staple of Ohio State, and he turns.
I know,
great.
Right?
I feel like he should lose his job too, though. I don't think he's done a good enough job.
I agree with that too.
What he teaches is antiquated. It worked 10 years ago. It doesn't work.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I
think that you'd have to take pictures. Like the only way to do it would be like go look at a picture of Darren Lee when he came into Ohio State, and then look at him afterward. He does that with a lot of people.
Yes, he physically can develop these guys, but I think part of
that's his only job.
I think that's all he does. But like conditioning is part of his job too, is it not?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't think these players are conditioned well enough to play at the highest level in the third and fourth quarter.
I think that's
every big game that Ohio State's lost against top level competition, they've sucked in the fourth quarter. Absolutely sucked.
That's a fair statement
And
too.
I think, to me,
But is it because
that
of
issue
is it because of physical
conditioning.
conditioning? Is it conditioning
Yes,
or is it
I think it is. As
or
long
Well,
as those
is
no,
kids
it
are
that's not the
healthy.
only reason, though, Mike.
I mean, it's not
That's
the only
the
reason.
only
It's
reason.
not. It's not. And some of it's scheme, and I'll give you that. But you see guys gassed at the end, and they shouldn't be.
Man, I don't know,
kinda
dude.
disagree with
I was
that.
on your side until you started doing that thing where you protect Ryan Day by blaming everybody else.
I'm not protecting Ryan Day. What I'm saying is that if Ryan Day is going, I think Mick should go too. I don't think they should. And to be
I don't
honest
think
with
it's
you,
going to matter because whoever's
and
coming in, whoever would
I
come in
might
is going
even-
to want their own guy.
I'd consider even
Yeah,
getting rid of
the only
Pantoni, too.
guy that I like there's a very big possibility that the only type of guy that would survive a mass firing like that would be Pantoni because
But why
Pantoni
though?
has what was that?
But why though? He's still
Because
he
Pantoni has nothing to do with anything other than recruiting classes.
I would agree with that.
Dictates. He 1,000% dictates every recruit that
But
comes to Ohio State.
if that's the case,
comes through Mark
then
Pantoni.
doesn't he get the blame for some of the offensive line issues as well, for not having recruited deep enough?
No, because this is what the problem is with offensive line.
Linebackers as well.
This is like
line. I mean, come on, like those are two huge areas that he's missing.
He doesn't. The problem that the one this is a conversation for another time, but the problem is that Ohio State and every other college in the country is going after. They have the wrong attitude when it comes to offensive line. Offensive line is a developmental position, and so all these kids that are trying to go to college and they're trying to get hundreds of thousands of dollars to play offensive line in college, it's not going to happen because you don't play offensive line. When you go to a college like Ohio State, you don't play until you're a junior if you're lucky. Sure. It's a developmental position. And so they don't need to be going after the best kids in the country because the best kids in the country are probably going to go to a school that's by where they live. And so what you should do if you're Ohio State is you should go get all of the best offensive linemen in Ohio and turn them into what you need.
There are other teams across the country that are starting freshmen on the offensive line, and they are doing very well. Like, there's two sides of this coin. They're finding guys who weren't highly recruited, who
because you got to be committed to, like, offensive line is the number one place where you have to rule your state. And so offensive line is a position where it's very important that person is committed to that team.
But then what you're saying is they've missed then in state then, right? They're not getting the
because
right
Mark
guys
Pantoni does want to go after the best guy that's rated in the position every year, and that's
why is he? But shouldn't he rely on his own scouting as opposed to the scouting services? Like, we're not seeing look.
No, a lot of these guys do not. There is guys in scouting and recruiting that cannot draw a cover 2 defense on the board. Mark Pantoni is not somebody that Mark Pantoni is a good scout and a good judger of talent, but he is very ambitious when it comes to every position, and he's not very willing to adjust when it comes to that. Like, I can tell you from personal experience that the best thing Ohio State could do would be to get nothing but kids from Ohio to play offensive line, because I don't care if there's not a big difference between the best offensive lineman in the country and kids at Pickerington North or Pickerington Central. Pickerington Central, they have at least one kid.
Then isn't he failing if that's the case then?
Well, I think that, but at some point though, the head coach is the one that figures out who to offer, what guys to pull the trigger on, because Pantoni was there with Urban as well. And we are seeing, I mean, the big complaint, if you talk to a lot of high school coaches in Ohio, is that their prospects are being put on the back burner under Ryan Day's watch. That was not an issue that they would have at Urban Meyer. Now, under Urban Meyer, you would hear high school coaches bitch about getting these fake scouts, the non-committal scholarships. You'd hear that all the time. Ryan Day doesn't even do that. Right. Now,
Ryan Day's going after the top 10 in every position.
And Urban didn't do that. And from a morality standpoint, maybe that's the right way to do it, because Urban offered a lot of dudes that he had no interest in all the time. Right. Sure. Just to make
because you got to rule your state. Chris Peterson used to say all the time when I was at Boise State, you have to rule your state. You have to be the school that everybody in that state wants to go to. And so sometimes what that means is you sign a bunch of kids and you offer them scholarships that are developmental, that are from that place. And offensive line's the way to do it.
There were kids that thought they were going to Ohio State that never did under Urban. I don't think that that's the case with Ryan Day. I think when he offers you a scholarship, it's a done deal. Now, with that said, you don't win national championships based off of morality, right? And that's kind of been the whole. That's So I get what you guys are saying. I mean, it is what it is. I think that Pantoni stays anyways because whoever you hire is going to want your lay for your land, right? So they usually when you get a new coach in, they keep one guy that is familiar with the recruiting territory. Like, hey, hey, I'm not from here. What's the good school in Cleveland?
Ohio State is unlike any other place, and their system is almost in a situation to like where it would be very difficult to come in and replicate what Mark Pantoni does. Everybody else in the country recruits a lot different. And he's the one place he's completely different. It's like, it's a talk for another time, but I will break down all of that. But yeah, it's just recruiting at Ohio State is not what most people think it is. Everything goes through Pantoni.
Interesting.
Well, I still got issues. I still got issues. He's missed a lot of positions going after guys that, they just didn't end up getting. And
offensive line, you're just not going to get that. I'm telling you.
But that's
offensive
fine. Though.
Lineman is a weird niche.
But what you're saying, Ryan, is that if that's the case, right, and if you have to rule the state, but they're still not doing that. They're going after the wrong guys in state. Are they not?
This is the one problem that Mark Pantoni has, in my opinion, is that he should be going after basically his whole entire offensive line should be Ohio kids. You could do it. You could build a national championship offensive line.
You could because, this year's offensive line class was kind of meh. But last year, you had multiple guys going to Tennessee, Michigan. The Armstrong twins went to Ohio State. You got, guys like Michigan State. There's guys that if you're talking about development, you might as well take those guys then.
You should,
but they're not though, and that's where I don't understand.
Yeah, because you're just not going to get those offensive linemen, so it's very difficult. Yeah, you're right. Like that, Mark Pantoni has the wrong idea when it comes to that.
I think that there's a lot of. I think that a lot of. I think that. Can you hear me? I think that your frustration, Mike, is valid about the recruiting, but what I would be more frustrated about is the lack of development, right? I mean, we're seeing Kirk Cignetti at Indiana. They're 8-0, dude. He went 11-1 to James Madison last year. They won 8 games at James Madison the first year they're in the FBS. That's development. That's
Ohio State offensive linemen are not in a very conducive environment to develop because Ohio State's practices are not like full contact physical ever. Like Josh, you know this.
That comes down to coaching.
Yeah, so Urban Meyer had a day every day of the week on Mondays to where he did go full pad, tackle, all kinds of crazy shit most of the time. Ryan Day, from what I understand, what?
You know what Nebraska did during pre-games? They did tug of war where they were hitting each other and shit in pre-game.
Sure.
I just know that from what I've heard about Ryan Day is that there is nothing higher than thud.
Here's my last thing I'll say about Ryan Day. I don't think he's a bad coach. What his style feels more akin to something you'd want in an NFL coach.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
That's what it feels like. And that's the issue because you're not coaching the NFL. You're coaching 18-year-old kids, right? You're coaching kids that might not even know how to play football. You got to teach them that. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to put in a game plan. That's why he's failing. I think if he went to he coaches like Kevin Stefanski coaches for the Browns, right? You see the same kind of style and what they do and how they act, right? Because Ryan Day is he's an NFL coach that's stuck in college.
That's and then that's the thing, that's another problem with some of these linebackers, some of these defensive positions is that these guys are never putting those guys in position to show you anything. So if somebody says, oh, well, they must be seeing more out of Cody Simon and more out of CJ Hicks and more out of Sonny Styles than they are out of Gabe, that's fucking impossible with Ryan Day's defense or with his practices because they don't ever have contact. They don't ever do inside drill. They don't ever do inside to like where they're coming down and they're actually hitting each other. Urban Meyer would do that when I was there.
And that's 100% true.
I've seen Ryan Shazier come downhill and knock the shit out of Carlos Hyde before. That's a humongous collision. And I've seen it in real time at Ohio State. And when I talk to the guys that I know that play for Ohio State right now, like there is no way that they're getting anything that this person's better than that person based off of practice. It would be impossible. So
he runs the ship like it's an NFL program, which I think is he tells recruits that too. Like that's part of the thing. Is like, dude, I'm training you for the NFL, but it's like, dude, we're not in the NFL. There's still a lot that needs to be learned.
I think to Josh's point, that system is great for receivers, not so good for linebackers, not so good for defensive linemen, not so good for defensive backs or safeties that you expect to make tackles, not so good for running backs that are actually going to get hit and tackled in games. So just keep all that in mind. But yeah, my computer's going to die. So we definitely got to end this. We're at an hour and a half.
We do have to end this. All right. Where can we follow your stuff, Josh?
Yeah, man. Follow me on X at Josh Keatley 16. Definitely check out my stuff at Buckeyes Wire. That's it, man. Here every Monday.
All right, Ryan.
Since we're by Halloween, rest in peace to the 2024 National Championship hopes for Ohio State, because they're going to lose this week, and then they're not going to make the Big Ten playoff, and they're not going to make they're not going to make the championship game or the playoff, and they're probably all fired after this game. So,
jeez, they're not going to fire mid-season if they lose to Penn State. They're definitely not going to fire mid-season.
Okay, they're not going to fire in the middle of the season, but if he loses to Penn State and he doesn't make the Big Ten championship game and he doesn't make the playoff, are they retaining him?
I don't. I still think.
Is Ohio State going to be better or worse if they lose this game?
Wait, well, I'm on your side, but I believe if he doesn't win the Big Ten championship, I would fire him. If he doesn't make the Big Ten championship, Jesus Christ, I would fire him. But Mike, I believe that we went over this situation in the offseason. You felt there was still a backdoor way for him to keep his job.
Yeah, I mean he's got to have a deep playoff run, but in Ryan's scenario, if he's not making the playoffs, then I think it's a viable option for sure.
I mean, but if they're going to lose Penn State, they're still going to make the playoffs.
Listen to me. Hold on a second.
So they have to beat Indiana and then they have to beat Michigan. So they
don't
have any room for error.
Beat Indiana, dude.
I mean, listen. They're going to lose to Penn State, and then they're going to have a hard time against Indiana because that coach adjusts and he knows what he's doing.
But you could be the best shoot this side of the Mississippi. But if I give you a fucking squirt gun, it's Indiana, dude.
Here's something I want you to think long and hard about. I was at Boise State, and we beat Oklahoma, and they had Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
That's it. Hey, I was on Boise State where Vinny Peretta was the starting wide receiver, and we beat Oklahoma with Adrian Peterson.
Even if they lose to Indiana, let's say they lose to Oregon, Penn State, Indiana, they're 9-3, still make the playoffs. And they're Ohio State, so they probably will. They're not going to get a bye, but Ohio State can lose 3 games and still make this fucking playoffs.
They don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
They made a borderline. They made a 14 playoff, and they didn't even make the goddamn Big Ten championship 2 years ago. And they made a 14 playoff. They were 25%. You're telling me they're not going to make it if they're allowing 12 teams? Hell yeah, they're going to make it.
Rest in peace to the 2024 National Championship hopes for Ohio State. And I graduated from there, and I'm a fan of that.
Mike, do you agree with me though? If a 9-3 Ohio State team can make the playoffs,
I think 9-3 is very sketchy. I don't know if they make.
Okay, interesting. Was not expecting.
How would they make it at 9-3 if there's 3 Big Ten teams that are better than them and they have a better record?
I don't know if they make.
There are 12 teams in this playoff. Only 4 of them are guaranteed spots.
I don't know if 9-3 gets you.
Okay, so if Oregon has a better record than them, Penn State has a better record than them, and IU has a better record than them, how do they make the playoffs? Because there's a bunch of conferences that get people in.
SEC is going to get 4, right?
Yeah.
And then,
I would agree with that.
And then ACC gets 1. That's 8. Big 12, 9, and then you've really got just 3 spots left.
We don't know who's going to get more spots, whether it's the Big Ten, the SEC, right? You're going to get
I'm just saying.
You
if
have
I was
your
to wager before at least 4 from each conference, at minimum 4 from each conference.
So you have your ACC champ, your Big 12 champ, and that's it.
Right.
There's no other
That's
people
2.
from those.
Hey,
conferences.
so just
your
let's
your
just talk this
G5.
up.
That's 3, right? So that leaves 9 spots.
Right.
Hey, listen, what we could do is
You can theoretically
after I
get
make
5 Big Ten teams.
hey, listen, after I make this prediction and I'm right, in like 6 months, you can go back and play this video and be like, wow, isn't that something? That even before Halloween, Ryan said that Ohio State was going to lose to Penn State, they were going to lose to IU, and they weren't going to make the playoff, and that's exactly what happened because they don't know how to coach, and they don't know how to adjust, and they don't put the right people in the game. And so I'm just going to go with that. And then 6 months from now, you can play this and be like, man, isn't that great that we got that Ryan guy on the show? Because
Oh, Jesus. I love that everybody's on the Signetti train, but my God, we gotta slow that bitch down, bro.
All right, we got to get out of here. I heard Ryan.
Yep, I'll see you guys
over there. All right, that's it. Go Bucks.